The following is rated not safe for work. It contains strong language, adult situations, and lots of spoilers. Discretion is advised.
In the criminal justice system, cinematic-based offenses are considered especially heinous. The dedicated attorneys who investigate these villainous films are members of an elite squad known as the Reels of Justice. These are their stories.
Order, please, order. The Reels of Justice is now in session. Judge Dylan D. Deliberation presiding. Will you all rise for the Honorable Judge Deliberation?
Be seated. Welcome to the Reels of Justice. Today we are hearing the case of The People versus the Babadook, a 2014 Australian horror film about a widow and her troubled son who are haunted by a supernatural being from a mysterious children's pop-up book. For those of you unfamiliar with our court proceedings, we are here to determine if this film is guilty of being a bad movie. Here in this courtroom, films are to be considered excellent until proven awful, and the burden of proof lies upon the prosecution to prove beyond a shadow of a reasonable doubt that this film is guilty. Mr. Bouncin' Bobby LePire, you're appearing on behalf of the prosecution. You may begin your opening statement.
Thank you, Your Honor. My esteemed, though in the wrong, colleague on the defense, jury members, and all the listeners who eat their cereal with a fork and do their homework in the dark, there are two things you should know about me and why I should, in theory, love the Babadook. For one, since 9th grade of high school, my dream has always been to be a dad. I chose the name of my first child, a girl, Acadia Sky, at around that same time. As such, a horror movie, one of my favorite genres, no less, that deals with the frustrations and hardships of both grief and being a single parent should be right up my alley. That's because of point two. As if one couldn't suss out from my last appearance in this courtroom, I love horror. I know they're not everybody's cup of tea, but I love that rush of adrenaline from a well-timed scare. So here we have a parable horror film from Australia, home to one of the most underrated and thriving independent movie industries in the world, featuring a wholly original creation as the monster at the heart of the film. On paper, I should love the Babadook. Why then do I hate it so? Because writer-director Jennifer Kent, making her feature-length debut, bungles the delivery in every possible way. The film uses cliches and tropes such as flickering lights and crawling bugs. Ad nauseum, it doesn't do anything to make them feel like they're beyond tropes. The characterizations are weak and inconsistent and change from scene to scene. This is especially true as the film draws to a conclusion. But most importantly, the movie just makes me hope and pray that Jennifer Kent never has children. It is very clear she bloody well hates them. So why isn't the directing and writing as original as its pop-up book monster? Well, that's what I'm here to discuss and win my case on today.
Thank you very much, Mr. LePire. And appearing for the fence is the Robbadook himself, Robb Maynard. Please present your opening statement.
Thank you. Your Honor, distinguished members of the jury, as I'm sure you all remember, in the late 1980s, the United States experienced a short-lived infatuation with Australian culture. From Crocodile Dundee, to Vegemite sandwiches, to those really big cans of Foster's Premium Lager. Now, for some bizarre reason, the Aussies thought this would be a permanent thing. Of course, it wasn't. The down-under fad soon fizzled, and Americo-Australian relations turned absolutely frosty. And it would be over 20 years until an Australian film would again make such a splash in the US as to give Yahoo Serious a serious run for his money. And that film is Jennifer Kent's directorial debut, 2014's The Babadook. It features a dark, perpetual sense of foreboding, doom and gloom, a great self-contained lore for its aforementioned eponymous boogeyman, a loving appreciation for horror films of the past, and a truly standout performance by Essie Davis, who constantly struggles to balance between teetering over the edge and falling off completely. Smart, stylish, and with just the right amount of scary, The Babadook is a film certain to crawl in under your skin and never go away. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Maynard. Prosecution, you may proceed with your first exhibit.
First, I have a little preamble to explain something real quick. On February 28th of 2017, David Christopher Bell wrote an article for the formerly awesome Crack.com, but they've gone downhill since. This column, dubbed the comparatively recent trend of smart allegorical horror tales as parable horror. This is the term I'll be using throughout this case, just so we're all on the same page there. When I say that, that's I'm talking about things like The Babadook, It Follows, The Witch, Get Out, so on and so forth.
So this would be when when the horror is representative of something greater than just a monster in and of itself.
Yes. Okay. The article is amazing. I'll share a link with you guys later on if you want it. And then I do concede to the defense's point. Essie Davis gives a brilliant lead performance and is almost enough to forgive the faults in the movie, but not quite.
Let's go home.
Order, please.
As Kent looked out there, she's not good with directing actors, but Davis somehow still manages to steal the entire show. With that concession out of the way, my first point is the poor characterizations just happen from the beginning of this movie. One of, if not the very first line of the movie is, "Mom, I had the dream again," spoken to the main character played by Essie Davis named Amelia. Her son says it. His name is Sam. He's played by Noah Wiseman.
He's 6 years old. 6 years old, Your Honor.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, I should probably very helpful information to have. We don't know what this dream is. We don't know if it's a nightmare or if it's just like it's something that's clearly keeping him awake, but he's not really seems that scared of it. So what is that dream? Because prior to this, what we're seeing is her, Amelia, reliving the death of her husband in a car crash on the way to the hospital to deliver Sam. So because we have no context for his dreams, his fear and his constant wanting to check for monsters and fight monsters via a catapult like backpack thing he carries and a mini crossbow, they don't really mean anything because Kent, as a writer, Kent wrote and directed the movie, failed to establish that sort of thing.
Your Honor, in the almost next prior scene, it's very quickly established that this kid has a fear of monsters. So I think it was safe to assume, I think most of the audience understood at that moment that those dreams he'd been having were of monsters.
Mr. Maynard, is this an objection?
It is an objection. It's an objection to that we don't know what his dream could be about. It could be about his dead father, but it's probably more likely about the monsters that he's obsessed with and making his own weapons for, which is sweet.
I will let Mr. LePire continue his point, but what you said is noted. They do mention that the kid is afraid of monsters.
So sustain the objection, Your Honor.
I won't do that. Continue, Mr. LePire.
It's a floss!
Well, they are looking for monsters under his bed, so one can assume that. That's all we're ever doing throughout most of this movie is assuming certain things. Because Kent, as a director, doesn't show us much. It's a lot of telling. And that makes the movie drag on quite a bit. But that's something I'll get to in a little bit. Other just weird things about the characterizations is for Amelia, she was at one time a writer for various magazines and stuff. Then after the death of her husband, birth of her son, at some point after that, she stopped doing that and now works at an assisted care facility. So she's now away from her son, who clearly needs a lot of attention. Not just that he's like rambunctious and that sort of thing, and maybe a little bit special needs, although that's never quite the term they use. But he's a kid. Kids need attention. So did the writing just not pay well? Why wouldn't having a job that you can do from home make your life easier in terms of being a single parent, in terms of trying to plot things out for the day? this job shift is just something that happens off screen. It's already happened when the movie starts and makes no sense given the context of a lot of the troubles Amelia faces throughout the movie, which is the Babadook is essentially the embodiment of grief she's feeling over never really getting over the death of her husband, that she, on a subconscious level, blames her son for, and that is the bulk of the tension throughout the movie. But did the husband push her to be a writer and that's why she quit? It's just so confusing that she would actually make life harder for herself by getting a new job she's not that interested in.
Objection, Your Honor, if I may respond to that. I think what you're seeing is the pressures of a single mother who, had this sort of creative job, but, writing is very hard to do, I think, as a single parent at home when you've got to care for a child all the time. It takes a lot of focus and takes a lot of concentration. And I think she just found it easier once, money just became important. Because you can have a book flop, you can have, articles not get bought. You can't risk not making money when you've got a kid. And so I think she trades in that passionate job for a job that seems like surefire money, that she knows she can do.
Here's a question.
I object to your objection, and I object to your objection because you're presuming all of these things. They're not shown to us. They're not told to us. It's just things that might make sense if we knew the characters a bit better. But what we know about Amelia is that she's grieving over the death of her husband and she subconsciously blames her kid. But even that's a little bit inconsistent because she's very protective of him, that in a way that doesn't always work. And she works at an assisted care facility, but not as one of the higher up admins. She's a med tech.
She's got to work her way up.
As an assisted care facility, and they don't pay. I mean, the pay's not awful, but it's not like amazing.
But it's consistent. It's regular.
Sure.
It's a dependable paycheck, unlike a writer, which is not a regular paycheck.
But if she was on staff at one of these magazines,
I don't think she was.
They don't tell us one way or the other.
They don't tell us one way or the other, but I know that when she explains it is one line, and she says that she wrote some articles. Your Honor, this is an objection to his objection to my objection.
I'll allow it.
And what I'd mostly like to say is that Mr. LePire here has claimed that this film does nothing but tell and not show, and then on the other hand, we're forced to presume everything. So does he want the film to be handed on a silver platter to him or not?
Mr. LePire,
is a reasonable question. And I want consistency. I don't want everything to be spoon-fed to me, but your question lines up directly with my next point, and that's
perfect.
The years-long time jump robs the Babadook of any stakes, right? In terms of, we see the car crash in this very dreamy, very sort of backlit thing, and then Amelia's sort of falling onto the bed, and she's woken up by Sam. And that is how we figure out what happened. And I actually really like that. That's an example of showing and not telling, that one of the few examples in the movie that does this. But in terms of the characters themselves, I should have been more specific when I said that, is we're really only told things about them and nothing about these things are explored. The time jump robs the stakes because we don't know Amelia's life beforehand. Like, no friends come to visit on her. Nobody comes to see her. Did she just discard all of them afterwards? Did she not have that many friends to begin with?
I think that is Your Honor, if I may object here, I think that is well fleshed out in the film, where her sister outright tells her, I don't like coming to your house anymore because I can't stand to be around your son. And then that sister's daughter says, Mom doesn't like to go to your mom's house. She thinks it's depressing. So it seems that if she did have friends in a social life, her grief has completely stripped that away from her. And obviously she's super toxic to all of those women who are at that party. She lashes out at them angrily because they're happy, because they have what she doesn't have. She can't stand to be around them. They can't seem to stand to be around her. So it to me, again, they didn't tell us, but I think they showed us that she has an ability to poison relationships with just about everyone around her because of her grief.
I am going to sustain that objection. I don't think I don't think it's a heavy lift to say that her newfound toxicity based on her grief is definitely repelling people, and she's actively trying to repel her son. But I don't want to step on anyone's case here. You may continue, Mr. LePire.
I don't agree with Robb said, except for they don't. Again, it's all dialogue. It's not showing us this thing. So I still maintain it's telling, not showing. And I think it would have been more effective if the time jump had been smaller. The kid's 6 or 7. And instead, if he was like 4 or 5, so he's just old enough to talk and be interested in stories, his belief in monsters would make way more sense. One of the frustrations of Amelia is that she's annoyed that he still believes in monsters at his age. And if you bring him down just a few years, it's a much more understandable thing. And I think overall it would make more sense. And give us a montage or something. It doesn't necessarily have to be a montage.
Objection, Your Honor, if I may.
Pushing out these other people in her life, so her loneliness makes more sense.
Objection, Your Honor. I think 6 or 7 is a perfect age for this child, because not only has the child begun to speak and can form coherent sentences, this is the age where the child's starting to be very precocious and speak his mind, because he's getting more familiar with his mind. So I would say this is the age where he's starting to talk about his dad all the time. And we see that. It's shown to us repeatedly in the film where he tells people in the grocery store, hey, my daddy's in the cemetery. I don't know that a 5-year-old or a 4-year-old would be going around saying something like that. At 7, they're old enough to understand it. And that seems like the believable age to be going around and saying that kind of stuff. And as far as being too old to believe in monsters, I mean, I'm 30-something. I still believe in monsters. So
that is her
I think 7 is too bad.
Son,
like
not
Godzilla?
my complaint with this. That is her complaint with the son, not mine. That is
I agree. And she is an unreasonable mother. She's not
Yes,
particularly
she is.
good at her job.
That.
All right, Mr. Mayor, your objection's noted, but I can't really sustain or overrule that. The jury's going to have to decide on how they feel about the age and how that works for the child. That's gonna
Suck
be
it, Your Honor.
You're on thin ice, Mr. Babadook. Mr. LePire, please continue.
Oh, okay. So going off of that conversation in the grocery store where he's telling this random Sam is telling this random kid that his dad is dead, and the little girl's fine with it. The mom of the little girl's a little more, what, huh? But this goes into something that I think the movie's very consistent on, and that's the writing of Sam. He claims he loves his mom throughout the entire movie, especially at the end of the film. There are 2 lines. When she's finally possessed by the Babadook, she says that he says that he has just wanted her to be happy. And shortly thereafter, a few minutes later on, says, I love you and I always will. And I don't buy this at all. Consistently and repeatedly throughout the movie, never listens to his mom. And I don't mean about minor things that kids will just be like, I'm a kid, let me do my thing. No. Big things to the point where he gets into trouble and gets kicked out of school for bringing weapons to school. And it's made clear by the conversation with, I guess it's the principal or whoever that is, some school employees, faculty members, that this sort of thing has happened before.
Mm-hmm.
And so at some point, was Sam like bullied into this? Because he also asks why nobody likes him, but we don't really see him interact with other kids. So we're just told that other kids don't like him. And I should specify, outside of his cousin,
Right.
Amelia's sister's kid, the sister's named Claire, the niece's name I don't remember.
Ruby.
Sorry?
Ruby,
Thank you. But outside of that child, Ruby, he's not interacting with anybody. And Ruby's the bloody worst, which I'll get to in just a moment.
Ruby is pretty terrible. If I could just briefly respond, I think we do see that the son doesn't make friends because he can't have his own birthday party, right? He has to share it with Ruby, which sounds to me like he has no friends of his own that would come to him.
Objection.
What friends he's going to have
that
over.
is a choice of Amelia because his birthday's the same day as the day husband/father died in the car accident, and she cannot bring herself to throw a birthday party on that day. It hurts her.
Agreed. That is mother's choice. But the implication is that if he can't share that birthday with her, he really won't have a birthday. And that's not a choice, is that no one will show up besides mom. That'd be it.
Again, I feel you're just presuming things to fill in the logical gaps that the movie never bothered to address.
I mean, I think to me, these are things that I've seen in the movie, Your Honor, that were shown to me. When he goes to that party, he hangs out in the clubhouse alone. He doesn't interact with a lot of kids, and he's not very social in that way.
Birthday party, and they're her friends. He might not know them very well.
Exactly.
He did talk to that little girl at the grocery store, so he has shown that he can socialize. So I'll let Bobby continue here, Mr. Maynard, on this path.
Okay, as much as I like S.E. Davis in the character, I find it difficult to relate or care about her character, not the actress. She's amazing in the movie, and I can easily see somebody liking it just for her, despite all the other issues. But the character is very frustrating for me. Going back to Sam getting kicked out of school, she isn't really that concerned for the well-being of however many of the students are in not just his class, but the whole school, because she is fighting for him to stay by repeating over and over to these officials, these school officials, that she'll have a talk with him. She'll make sure this doesn't happen again. She's desperate. And I understand part of her desperation comes from that she is a single parent. She needs him to be in school during the day so she can go to work. That I get. But it's clearly not the first time this has happened. That's why they're taking such drastic steps to cut him out. But more importantly, they're actually offering a reasonable solution to work with her and help her choose a therapist sort of person to see
a monitor, I believe they say.
And she objects so wholeheartedly, despite it being very obvious by the way he acts before the Babadook even shows up and starts possessing either one of them, that he needs something like that. It's very difficult to care for somebody who is at once both repelling, however subconsciously, her own son, and this strange defense of his. And I think those two ideas do not work together whatsoever.
Responding here, Your Honor, I think that Amelia's character is not, especially Amelia, who is really under the pressure of this grief and just the struggles of being a single parent, is not exactly supposed to be likable. She's not, making healthy choices, and that's obvious. She's not supposed to be a role model mother. She's supposed to be a struggling mother who's probably not making the best decisions for herself or her son. I don't know that she's supposed to be likable, but things I have read about this film is a lot of people were relieved that there were others who, some viewers very much related to how Amelia felt, resenting their kids and feeling trapped and being unhappy. And these viewers, when they found similar minded people after the film, I know expressed some relief that, thank God I'm not the only one that feels this way. Obviously the filmmaker kind of felt that way when she created that people could feel trapped and sort of suffocated in the situation. So it may not be a great feeling. Maybe it's she's not a role model character, but it's real. I think there are people out there who feel very much that way. So I'd say it's authentic. I don't think she's supposed to be someone you love. At least not for most of the film.
But I'm supposed to empathize and root for her to eventually come out on the other side and win over her grief, and I don't. And
I do. I root for her to come out the other side for Sam's sake.
Yeah, but Sam's way worse than her.
Sam's just an annoying kid. Most kids are annoying, as Sam is.
I think Sam is the worst movie kid since The Ring, but at least The Ring is smart enough to relegate the kid to just a few scenes and one dumb psychic scene that doesn't lead to anything.
I don't know. Sam is not nearly as annoying as half the kids in Gamera movies. And one of the real things about this is Sam's afraid of monsters and he's real freaking out, but for most of the movie, the monster's real, right? There actually is a monster after this kid. So he's He's not overreacting. He's underreacting, if anything. Like, here's an actual monster in that house trying to get him and trying to possess his mom and trying to kill everybody. And so, given that, I mean, Sam, I think, is reacting the way I would.
I agree on his reaction to the monster. I don't agree with the other stuff. Like, I can't remember if it's the first scene with Claire and Ruby or one of the very first scenes. They're at a playground, and he just keeps yelling, "Mommy, mommy, mommy, watch me! I can go higher!" And he's climbing the side of the swing, and eventually he falls off. And we just cut to him in the car crying because he injured himself, and all that's well and good. And that's definitely something a kid would do because they want the attention. But instead of making it somehow likable or endearing, as I just wanted the kid to shut up for more than 5 minutes.
I think that's how you're supposed to feel, because I think that's how the mother feels.
Because I don't think it's believable annoyance. He's not a believable kid. It's a child actor pretending to be annoying, which is its own level of annoying, because I think Noah Wiseman, the actor playing Sam, is not good here.
He's 6.
So, I mean, how old was Haley Joel Osment when he made Sixth Sense? That performance holds up.
Reducto ad Shyamalan, Your Honor.
You're a thin ice, Mr. LePire. We have strict rules on that.
Very court. Thank you very much.
But I think that the kid is extremely annoying, and I'm not sure that this film is saying every kid is this annoying, but this is a particularly annoying kid, which really just compiles the issues his mother has.
Yeah, but it sounds like what Mr. LePire is saying is that it's transcending the film. It's actually annoying him as a person. He's not feeling that emotion from the movie the way the director wants. He's feeling a legitimate annoyance, not an empathetic annoyance.
The kid's got X-Pac heat, you're saying.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly saying that.
No. I can accept that.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's good because for the way the character's written versus the way he acts as the character, it's once again just they're diametrically opposed to each other. Now, going back to your point of him being a 6-year-old, I actually lay most of this at the hands of Jennifer Kent, who gave him poor direction throughout most of this movie. He's a very energetic, often happy child, which goes against most of how he should have been felt if his mom, as the movie wants us to buy into, the entire crux of the film is that she is so toxic and has repelled all these other things due to this grief of hers that she subconsciously blames him for the death of her husband, his father. I don't buy that this kid is feeling these emotions up until the Babadook shows up. The Babadook is not the manifestations of his emotions, but her grief. So him acting the way only when that monster shows up does not make sense to me. I do have another concession to make while I'm thinking about it. Besides S.E. Davis's performance, I like the pop-up book. The pop-up book is a cool bit of production art design. I like that a lot. But beyond that, not so much. Going back to in one of your objections, Rob, you mentioned that you don't think the movie is saying all kids suck, but I disagree. I disagree because
I don't think the movie is saying all kids suck. It never says that. It just shows us a couple of kids that do suck, and certainly lots of kids suck. But I mean, not all kids.
Right. So you guys agree on that point. Let Bobby finish his point.
I disagree that, and I disagree because of the character of Ruby, because these are really the only 2 kids in the entire movie. There are some off to the sides, but if they say anything, it's 1 or 2 lines at best. They don't matter. I doubt they have names. But Ruby is worse than Sam by a long shot because she, unlike Sam, doesn't really have the same sort of emotional and or mental health problems that make Sam react the way he does, again, before the Babadook even shows up. At this birthday party we talked about, he's hiding out in the treehouse, just minding his own business. Ruby comes up there and starts egging him on that his mom doesn't love him, saying that his dad died because he didn't want to see him, being the worst kind of person you can imagine. So Sam's reaction is over the top and not okay. But again, he's a child who has these obvious behaviors that this other child already knows about. So he pushes her out of the treehouse and breaks her nose. And you know what? I don't blame Sam for that one bit. It's meant to be this shocking moment of Sam.
Nobody felt bad for Ruby.
But
Nobody.
But it's not. It's his reaction was over the top, but it wasn't going too far because he's a kid and he's still learning those boundaries. And she absolutely had something coming to her. Not that, because again, that violence doesn't need to happen, but she's worse than him because of that. And because of this is the only two kids we see, and we don't have any point of view from Claire or Ruby, I'm fairly certain Jennifer Kent doesn't care for kids and thinks they're all monsters.
I mean, potentially, but there is. I don't know that. I think that's a lot of presumption. If I may object here, Your Honor, it is only the two kids we see, but two kids is honestly not enough of a test group for us really to know. As for Ruby being a bad kid, you can say a lot of stuff about Ruby being a bad kid, pushing and bringing bad behavior out of Sam. Misbehaving kids tend to mix with other misbehaving kids and make them worse. But in this case, we do see Sam at the end in a completely different light, where there seems to be a hope and an optimism for Amelia and Sam's relationship going forward. So I think if Jennifer just hated kids at all, you wouldn't get that sort of a happy ending where the two have, almost unconditional love and overcome the problems of grief together.
All right, I think you guys have given the jury something to chew on with this point about how kids are represented in the film. Mr. LePire, is there another point you'd like to make?
As a director, I think Jennifer Kent just doesn't do much to elicit fear. She initially wanted this movie to be shot in black and white, which I think would have added immensely to the atmosphere of the movie. But we eventually scrapped this idea, excluding the Babadook itself, which is still a black and white figure looking very much like it does directly out of the pop-up book that summons it, for lack of a better term, up to including the way it moves. However, because she chose to scrap this, it kind of feels like she wasn't sure what the movie should look like. It's this very drab, gray tones throughout most of the movie, and that's meant to be the sort of grief and stuff. Everything's very muted because Amelia is very muted. She doesn't really have a life. There's nothing really, not quite sure how to phrase it, but essentially the muted colors represent her inner life. She's still struggling. She's still in grief. So everything's gray. Everything's boring. It's not a good, pretty life. And that works fine. At the end of the movie, it's not that dramatically different at the end that Robb was just talking about, which is why I wanted to get into such detail with you there. They are outside. They're having the only real heart-to-heart they actually have in the movie because they've overcome this to a certain degree. They survive stronger, come out the other side, and it's slightly brighter, but there are no contrasting colors to show up to really
I'd say bingo.
drive home this visual point. It's a boring-looking movie.
I think you've gotten it there, Bob. It's slightly brighter. The Babadook isn't gone. He never goes away.
Yeah, it's not.
The grief is never going to go away. It's always going to slightly dim that house and hover over that house. So what you see is a slightly brighter ending, but it is noticeable to the point where it almost seems, compared to how drab and dark the rest of the film, it almost seems dreamlike still.
See, I disagree because the dream in the very beginning of the movie looks way more dreamlike than the ending shot. The ending shot needed something. I'm not sure.
A rainbow in the back, a big rainbow.
I'm not sure what that something is, really, but they're still in the very muted color clothes that they wear throughout most of the movie. And the only difference is it's now outside and the sun's out, so it happens to be a brighter day. That's it. It's shot the same. The style of cinematography doesn't really change up at all. There's nothing in the visual representation outside of the sun's now out to really drive home that point. It's boring to look at. And the editing's also not very good. At 15 minutes and 45 seconds in, there's a continuity issue. Sam comes in to Amelia's room. gets on the bed, and initially Amelia, when we're looking at the screen, is on our left, Sam is on our right. They're having a bit of a conversation. They're getting ready to go to bed. And then we get a few cutaways of some weird shadowy stuff that may or may not be Babadook or whatever. And we cut back and they have swapped places. They've just magically reversed sides. And that would be okay if it was like, if we like saw them rolling over and stuff. We don't. They're just on different sides. It's just a massive continuity issue. And now for like, oh, those forks moved, but that's not the focus of the scene. They are the focus of the scene. They are the focus of most of the scenes in the movie. I can't think of a single scene that doesn't have one of them in it at all. Like, they are in every scene. Not necessarily every shot, but in every scene. And so for a continuity error like that, it's just bad. And then closer to the end of the movie, Sam, who's proven to be fairly smart when it comes to like engineering things, he made this like backpack catapult and stuff, sets a trap for the Babadook after it possesses his mom, or beforehand and didn't know it would be his mom is possessing. That part's a little unclear, but that's not really a nitpick or me complaining about that. Just and the sequence of Amelia falling down those steps into that trap is so confusingly edited. I had to rewind and watch it 3 times to understand what was going on. It's just a bunch of weird close-ups of her head and a banister, and then some sound design things that sound like thumping, but not entirely. And it does not work at all. And how she winds up in this trap is also a bit confusing, but that's more of a writing thing than an editing thing.
All right. So are you ready to close your case, Mr. LePire?
I have one more point to make.
Very good, sir.
And
please
that is also near the end of the movie. The Babadook shapeshifts. He shapeshifts to take the form of the dead husband / father.
Yes.
I don't have that person's name in front of me. They say it like once or twice. And I think this is a cop-out.
It's Oscar.
Thank you. I think this is a cop-out. Nothing about the Babadook's powers up to this point suggests he can do this at all. Him possessing people, this works. This is kind of what he's trying to do the whole movie. But he just shapeshifts into this thing without any warning or anything at all. And that doesn't work. And the reason that doesn't work is because it's meant to be a literal monster. It is not just a manifestation of her grief. It is an actual thing attacking them as well. But without establishing those powers, how could it do that?
An interesting point. So are you going to rest your case on that one?
With that, I rest my case.
Very good. Thank you very much for your arguments. Mr. Maynard, you may proceed with your first exhibit.
Yeah, I just want to kind of respond to that point. I love the design of the Babadook, but I disagree that its form is static. Throughout the film, this picture book, shows that something is beneath this cloak, and you never really get to see anything very clearly, even in the picture book. He's sort of nebulous and he's indistinct. And I think that allows us, the audience, to kind of fill in those blanks with our own imagination, kind of projecting our own ideas of what the terrifying form he might take. So I think his form is intentionally left undefined, because, as the book says, if you get a Babadook, this is the Babadook, but there are other Babadooks. And I'm sure no 2 Babadooks are exactly the same, because our fears and our insecurities and our grief, they're all different. So I don't exactly agree that it's a distinct form. I think it can shapeshift and change into what is more of our fears, or what will bother us more, dependent on our issues at the time. And overall, I love the design of the Babadook. He's kind of like a Pokemon in that he can only say his own name. Which is
Objection.
Babadook.
He does not say his own name. He gurgles it, sort of like
gurgles it.
Tom
he croaks it.
Was drinking sand and then filtered that through a nursery rhyme. And that's not a complaint, simply more of a
no, it's great. I agree with you, Bobby. It's a great touch. And the director chose that name Babadook because it sounds like a name a kid would make up, like Jabberwocky. Besides that, the Babadook has this long coat and a top hat, and I think that's a little Jack the Rippery, but it's also kind of evocative how we often see like coats or hats out of the corner of our eye and mistake it for some kind of boogeyman, which happens repeatedly in the film. She'll see a coat or a cloak and look over and be like, is that a Babadook? And that's a cool element for a boogeyman character. Otherwise, his appearance seems to draw from some other works of horror that inspired Jennifer Kent. We see the protagonist watching 1963's Black Sabbath on TV, which is a film about a corpse that comes back to life. And the Babadook's facial features kind of resemble that creature. It has a pale face, like a cadaver face, come to life. And it has these long, slender fingers or claws that kind of remind me of like Count Orlok from Nosferatu, or like the somnambulist from Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. So, and we even see the protagonist.
Either the Babadook has these things, the long nails and long.
This Babadook has them.
Or
when it chooses to. I think it is.
Mr. Man, let Bobby get his objection out.
Yeah, either the Babadook has the long, pale fingers and creepy nails and that sort of monster dead-eye face, or it's somebody under the cloak, which you're saying, Rob, that it's both, but it's not. It's one or the other, and Jennifer Kent cannot decide which one.
I never remember the film saying that it has to be one or the other. Like, to me, the Babadook
that it isn't the
grows in size in some moments
until it shapeshifts at the very end out of nowhere.
I don't think it's out of nowhere, because we do see it take the shape of the husband a few times, but we see it take the shape of like a weird kind of spider thing crawling on the wall that's a little bit less humanoid. And sometimes we see it almost like it has giant wings. Like when they open, when like at the moment it possesses her, they're almost like giant, like a wingspan.
That is established from the pop-up book, yes.
Right, exactly. The pop-up book does not show a static shape for the Babadook. It does kind of change. So I don't think it's out of its realm of powers that it can do this. You don't know it at the beginning, but you find out by the end. Oh yeah, the Babadook, its form can change, as the need arises. And I do think the direction is really great. The opening shot where we see the fatal car crash and Amelia's face is really static in the frame with the glass going everywhere. There's a lot of beautiful moments where like Amelia's nights are captured almost in time lapse, which like exaggerates how quickly that time seems to pass for her. Like in the blink of an eye, it's morning to her. Like she doesn't feel like she sleeps at all, highlighting her insomnia, which adds to her troubled mind. So I think the film is full of these great little directorial flourishes that add to character development and thematic storytelling. If you have no response to that, Your Honor, I would like to call a witness, if I may.
Ooh, how exciting.
The defense calls Mr. Babadook to the stand.
Babadook.
Bailiff, will you swear in the witness?
Please place your hand on this mysterious copy of Mr. Babadook that just showed up out of nowhere. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
Babadook.
Hell slap into you. Is that a yes?
Don't worry, Your Honor. I studied Babadook for a semester in college, and he said I do.
Very well, proceed, but you're on thin ice.
Thank you, Your Honor. First, for the court's edification, would you please state your name for the record?
Babadook.
Very good. Thank you. Now, Mr. Babadook, I believe that you were involved in the production of Jennifer Kent's 2014 horror film, The Babadook. Is that correct?
Babadook.
Great. And based on that experience, would you say, what thematically would you say is the significance of your character in that film?
Babadook.
Excuse me, I didn't get that.
Babadook.
I'm sorry. I'm having a really hard time understanding you. I think it could be your accent.
Babadook.
Excuse me, I'm afraid I had something of a frog in my throat there. Quite sorry. Now, I believe you were asking me about the thematic relevance of the character I portrayed in the film The Babadook.
Yes, that's correct.
Very good. Now, I shall enlighten you as best I can. As I recall, I believe that my character served as a sort of physical manifestation of the grief of the central protagonist, Amelia, played by the marvelously talented Essie Davis.
She was wonderful, wasn't she?
Smashing, simply smashing. She and I had a bit of a tryst off camera, if you don't mind me saying so, but that really is more of a story for another time and place, I'm afraid. Now, as for my character, Mr. Babadook stands as a personification of the loss and anguish experienced by the main character following the death of her husband. I spent most of the movie lurking in the shadows in many scenes, often unseen, yet rarely unfelt, and always, always present. The doom and despair of that grief hung over that idyllic little home like a pall, even before I had the opportunity to have my first scene. And the anxiety and stress of that loss is already taking its toll on the characters from the very first frame of the picture. However, I think my character mostly serves as a reminder of how such grief can run rampant when left unchecked, running roughshod over every aspect of one's life, from personal to professional, and can even begin to infect the lives of others around us.
Splendid, very astute. And at the end of the film, Amelia ends up standing up to you, and your character retreats to the basement, where you seem to remain indefinitely, being cared for and fed by Amelia. What do you think was the significance of that choice?
Well, you see, the basement is where Amelia stored all of her dear departed husband's belongings, as a way of keeping them out of sight, in hopes of keeping them out of mind. In fact, her character seems to suffer through the various stages of grief throughout the film, denying that there's any problem at all, and lashing out angrily at others when they mention her husband's name. So, when my character ultimately retreats to the aforementioned basement, this is the moment where Amelia first reaches acceptance and changes how she copes with her grief. Rather than just try and lock me away forever, as she was previously doing with her husband's things, she now regularly visits the basement in order to commune with her grief, even caring for it, while always maintaining her control over it. Sam later asks, "How was it?" To which she replies, "It was quiet today." Obviously, some days are more difficult to deal with our grief than others. But Sam cheerfully adds, "It's getting better," a hopeful sign of things to come. However, the important thing to remember is that, like grief, I never truly go away. I remain locked in Amelia's basement for the rest of her life, because after all, you can't get rid of the Babadook. That's a thing I say sometimes.
An important lesson for us all. One final question, Mr. Babadook. Are you aware that you've become something of an icon within the LGBTQ plus community?
Have I?
Yes, it's quite well documented.
Cool. Very cool.
Objection, that started off as a lark.
Well, I'll take the publicity, I'll tell you that much.
Yes, well, I have no further questions, Your Honor. So, prosecution, if you'd like to cross-examine the witness.
Mr. the Babadook. Or is it just Mr. Babadook or just Mr. the?
Mr. Babadook will be fine. Mr. the Babadook is my father.
All right, Mr. Babadook. You talk about the ending of the movie in which you are now being kept in the basement and Amelia is visiting you. And would you agree that the impetus of the movie is that Sam, the child, wants to know more about his dad and is questioning Amelia about that, but Amelia is still so grief-stricken even after all these years that she can't really talk about him or even hear his name without just snapping into bouts of anger or sadness.
Yes, I'd say that's true. I think that the boy, Sam, has a lot more ability to deal with these issues. Obviously, he can go down into the basement and explore and does so frequently, something that his mother cannot do.
So he's exploring an unknown world because he knows nothing about his dad because his mom refuses to talk about it. So would you agree that the ending would be better served if instead of throwing a birthday party, as they talk about doing, that it ends with Amelia telling Sam a story about his dad? This would come full circle to really impact the themes that the film has been building up to. Not doing so makes it seem like she prizes just simply throwing a birthday party for herself, which she now has finally agreed to do, but it's such a minor thing given the context of the movie that it's not nearly as engaging for the audience as it would be if she started telling any single story to Sam about, we said his name was Oscar, was it?
Oscar, yes, the father.
Yes.
I would say that while you call it minor, is it Mr. LePire or Mr. Bouncing?
Mr. Bouncing Bobby LePire. Full title,
Mr.
please.
Bouncing Bobby LePire. I think what you see as minor is certainly a major step for this character of Amelia. She had never before celebrated Sam's birthday on his birthday due to the grief, so the fact that she is now celebrating his birthday on his birthday is quite a step in the right direction for her. It may seem like a baby step to you, but for an individual suffering grief, it is progress.
I agree with that, but it's only progress for one of them. Sam still doesn't know anything about his dad. And that's what he's fighting for this entire movie. It's only a conclusion for one of them.
I think the mother says something like, I'll show you when you're a bit older and ready. So perhaps
She does, which is a total cop-out because then Sam's entire story goes nowhere.
Sequel!
There will be no sequel, unfortunately. I do think that Sam's story still comes about because while he doesn't have the memory of his father as much as he could, he does have his mother back. So I do think there is still a bit of an arc for young Samuel.
I would agree with that, but earlier you stated that he can go in and about and play with his father's things freely. So how does that tie in thematically to everything else going on?
The child doesn't have as much difficulty dealing with the grief. I think children can't process death in the same way. I think they don't know forever as well. And so I think that's what we're seeing is to Sam, he's more curious about his father's life than obsessed with his father's death as his mother is. So there is less for Sam to overcome about his father's death, but there is still a lot for Sam to overcome about his mother's grief.
They're all intertwined, though. So failing to do that, the throwing a birthday party is all well and good, especially because it's never happened for him on his actual birthday. But to do so and then to tell him a story of the dad would really hammer this home and make it so much more impactful. But they go the Kubo and the two strings route where they just go, oh, everything's okay now, but don't actually resolve that much.
Order Kubo is awesome.
Kubo
is awesome. Thank you, Your Honor. I watch that with my niece sometimes.
I like Kubo, but the ending of that movie does not work.
Kubo is not on trial, sir. Do you have a relevant question for me, the witness? But I would say there are other directions that could have been taken. But to say that what was chosen was not a step in the right direction, was not some kind of progress for the relationship between mother and son, I would say is dishonest and makes this whole courtroom a farce.
No, the only thing that makes this a farce is one, that accent, two, you putting words in my mouth. I never said it wasn't a step in the right direction. I said that it never allows both stories, Amelia and Sam's, to actually coalesce and come together in a way that means it's impactful for both of them. Sam still has the same questions at the beginning of the movie that he does at the end.
All right, so that's not really a question there, Mr. LePire. So,
no. I just wanted to correct him because the witness is putting words in your mouth, and I don't appreciate this.
No, that is a fair point, Mr. LePire. You've made your point very clear. Do you have any other questions for the witness?
Yeah, where can I buy a hat like that? I like it.
I'll get you the number of my haberdasher.
All right, Mr. the Babadook, thank you, and you are dismissed.
Thank you, Your Honor, and I hope everyone here can catch my one-man show, Alan Turing, A Life, playing at the Winter Garden Theater, December 6th through 21st. Babadook out!
Bailiff, you'll scratch that last promotion from the record, please.
Oh, my God. So stricken.
All right.
Yeah, and Your Honor, the defense rests.
Oh, well, I should hope so. Thank you. All right. Both the prosecution and the defense have rested their cases. The attorneys will now present their closing arguments. Bouncing Bobby LePire for the prosecution. You may begin.
Through this case today, we have weighed and measured the Babadook, and it has been found wanting. Excluding S.E. Davis's admittedly great performance, what does the movie offer? A bunch of cliches and poor characterizations, but not allowing us, the viewing audience, to know Amelia's relationship with her deceased husband. It cripples the emotional weight of her grief by writing Sam so inconsistently, Jennifer Kent fails to capitalize on the hardships of single parenting to a child with special needs. By allowing the titular monster to magically shapeshift for no reason, the filmmaker cheats both the established rules and viewer expectations. As such, there's no doubt that this movie is not good. It's not even okay, but it is bad. And if it's bad, it must be found guilty, or else the Babadook will come and get you.
Thank you very much. Babadook Robb Maynard, you may present your closing argument.
Your Honor, distinguished members of the jury, we've had a lot of fun here today, as always. But the topic of grief is a serious one. Certainly other films, even other horror films, have tackled this important issue in the past, but can we really say that coping with loss is such a niche matter that we need no more? No way. I'm happy to have another entry in the zeitgeist about this particular topic, especially one that does so with such lavish directorial flourishes in a directorial debut, no less, an outstanding performance by the lead, a wonderful suite of nods and references to other influential horror films of the past, and a wonderfully designed boogeyman character who has gone on to become a veritable icon within the LGBTQ plus community for all the obvious reasons we need not go into here. It's a movie with a lot of things it wants to say about grief and depression, but chooses to do so in a very stylized way within the horror genre, and I say that's cool. I look forward to the horror genre continuing to tackle other such important issues, from nail-biting to bulimia and everything in between. And I hope when they do so, they make it as entertaining as this film was. Thank you.
All right, thank you both. Members of the jury, Mr. Haslar, Big Papa Schlender, and Mr. Shrimp on the Barbie, Ryan Rodriguez, you have all heard the facts concerning this case. It is now up to you to determine if this film is guilty of being a bad movie. The bailiff will escort you to the deliberation room to render your verdict.
Let me just knock 3 times on this door here. All right, it's all clear.
Okay, Ben, why don't you start?
Well, thanks, Ryan. Okay, I don't hate this movie. It has but it comes to me like with a 98% on Rotten Tomatoes. Like this thing is very critically acclaimed, and it seems like it's the sort of thing that critics just like sort of eat up because they're more about that sort of symbolism and what does it all mean rather than how does it all actually play out. So there is a lot of awkwardness that I see in this movie that Bobby LePire did bring up for me. There's even a few more like she makes everything really harsh where like just putting in a key into a lock all of a sudden is just like grating on your head. But she does absolutely get right how annoying kids can be, especially when they're in this age where they're just like so self-expressive and so wanting to assert their importance that in the world that they know everything, that I don't have to worry because they got this, that sort of thing. And I've spent a lot of time at like parents' houses that have kids. And whenever I leave, I'm just sort of aware all of a sudden that this is what silence feels like. And she completely nailed that in this movie. That kid was so annoying. I do not want to have kids ever now. Thanks very much to this movie. So
yeah, this movie's what's stopping it, huh?
Hey, get out of here, man.
That was not called for, man. That was not called for. That's mean.
Yeah, like I mean, I love kids, but this kid,
kid.
I mean, like at times
Mamma
I get Omen vibes, and I get we need to talk about Kevin vibes, where I feel like I'm supposed to be rooting for S.E. Davis to kill that kid, and I don't know if it's intentional or I'm just a bad person. But yeah,
be both.
But at the same time, like he's super annoying and he's just terrible. But I know that kid. I have been around that kid.
Yeah.
I've probably
totally
been
do.
that kid. I mean, that's a real kid. That is not a bad performance. That is a real kid. And the struggles that S.E. Davis's character goes through, like it's not just kind of the anxieties of being underprepared or unfit for parenthood and kind of being like humiliated or being shamed by other parents who are kind of holier than thou or just better at it than she is. But I also get like this impression that maybe she's kind of going through like the throes of bipolar, going through that. Like myself, I totally like completely identify with her throughout the entire movie. Like, there's not a single thing really that she does other than maybe like drugging her kid, where I'm like, okay, that's going too far. Like, I listening to the prosecution, like I understand the arguments against, and I understand where it could possibly be maybe inconsistent, perhaps, but I there's not really moments where I don't buy it. Like, I
do agree that there's logical gaps. It doesn't spoon feed you, but at the same time, you don't know everything the character knows. So there's sort of a balance there that they didn't quite strike, where I don't know what's happening.
Yeah, you are filling in the gaps to kind of try to make it more interesting for yourself. Like when they said that she was a writer, I immediately assumed that she wrote the Babadook book, but we never really get that. And I thought that would have been a neat element to have in play, because she mentioned
I agree
specifically. And so we actually don't know anything about the Babadook book except that it shows up. And then we don't know anything about the Babadook except that he's real. And then it's obviously very easy to interpret him as being a manifestation and symbolic of the grief and everything. And
something elemental.
Exactly. I really think, like, I got to agree. Actually, I didn't think about it until Bobby brought it up, but like the whole shape-shifting thing, like that was kind of a cheat, I gotta say. I guess
a little easy.
A little easy. The Babadook, I guess he could do anything, but it didn't really fit with the style and the pop-up book and everything. Like there was no like handsome portrait of the husband in the back of the book or something.
And that's what I mean by like critics like that sort of thing. They like symbolism where it's like, oh, see, it's the husband.
Yeah.
Does it really fit? I don't know.
That's one of the things that I had trouble with going into this movie right away, is that it had a tremendous reputation ahead of it. I mean, tremendous, impossible not to have heard about it. And, so many like positive things. And then when I'm watching, I'm like, okay, yeah, this is good, but this isn't redefining horror or anything. Like
3 defining pop-up books. I'll give it that. That pop-up book.
Yeah, maybe awesome. It's redefining pop-up books. That is good production design. I think there were some good directorial decisions for a first effort. But I do understand Bobby's point about how that discomfort transcends the discomfort you're supposed to feel because you're empathizing with the movie into the kind of discomfort where you're checking your watch, looking at your phone, saying, okay, let's move on, So I definitely got some of that while watching the movie. And I think Bobby did a good job of articulating that as well, But I think, it's hard to ignore how good the main actress was. I mean, her frustration, her snapping at the kid. I mean, that was all pretty good. I do think the kid was a smidge inconsistent.
The kid helped her out a lot. I'd snap at that kid.
Yeah, I know. I think the kid was a little inconsistent. It was kind of weird to follow him in his travails. Like if you really focus on the mother, though, it makes the picture a lot clearer. And she does a good job. Like you believe that she's frustrated, you believe she's exhausted, you feel for her, and that she's like a bad mom. Though that's the thing. It's just like you just want to grab her and shake her, say, "Be better for your son. You have to do it. I know it's tough. It sucks. You were dealt a bad hand, but you've got to suck it up for your kid." And I don't know if she actually ends up doing it at the end of the movie too. And it's just kind of depressing.
Well, she laughs at a magic trick. I mean, all the problems are solved, right?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, it's just, it's like they were saying, though, the Babadook never goes. That grief, it's in the basement now. Like, what's going to stop him from getting out? It's like that Twilight Zone episode, The Hollowing Man. What if someone removes the little cane from the basement door and then, bam, Babadook's out again? Who knows?
I like that, though. I mean, it kind of keeps that last scare alive, and then it fits well within that symbolism of you holding on to your own grief. So I don't know. That didn't bother me.
That's something people say about grief, It's very common. They don't say you ever get over anything. Like you learn how to carry it with you. You know what I mean? Like you learn how to move forward with it. You don't move forward past it, And, you like symbolism and stuff like that. It's all in there. It's, it's pretty easy symbolism, because like
it is. It's
grief, It's like, oh, she's sad that her husband died. I don't have to really wrap my mind too much around here, It's not really saying much about the process of grief, except that it's tough. It's like, well, yeah, it is. Lots of people have to deal with this. So
that's true. It doesn't really have like a real world solution, does it?
Well, it's not even about having a solution. It doesn't really even have original thoughts on it, though, is the whole point. It's basically like a self-help book turned into a horror movie.
Burn.
Well, yeah, I know this is making it sound like I don't like
This
it a
was
lot,
just
but
like a
actually,
therapy project. I mean, that
I
reeks.
didn't. Yeah, you know, like I didn't. But that's the thing, though. Like I didn't hate it. It made some. It had some interesting stuff. This is just one of those movies. Like I just don't ever see watching it again. I don't buy. I don't get the hype. I don't get how everyone loves it. I think it was one of those maybe like herd mentality kind of things. No one wanted to look stupid for not liking it. I have no
We
idea.
can't judge it on that. We can't judge it on herd mentality. We can't bring that stuff into the
I
courtroom.
know. I'm not bringing it in. I'm just saying, though, like I had an expectation going into this movie, and it didn't meet it. And maybe that's not the movie's fault, but like
It isn't.
that's the real world, you know. Like, so, like, yeah, it's fine, you know, but it's just like it's not
I'm
particularly.
pretty much
scary.
exactly where you are. You're
Yeah,
taking
like
the words
that's the
out of my
thing.
mouth.
Yeah,
It's
no, it's
only
like-
okay.
Yeah, like it's okay. It's not scary. You know,
No.
and not a lot new here too. You know, it's like I would. Like, here's another Australian horror movie that involves ghosts. It was Ryan. I don't know if you've seen this. Lake Mungo.
No. I Graham Skipper was
What?
talking about it a
Ryan
while
has
ago
not
on
seen a
Twitter, but I
film?
haven't actually seen it.
All right, now see, Lake Mungo, also Australian, does some interesting things with ghosts. You know, like you have this idea of like, is the ghost real or is this something else? And then there's kind of like a twist and a little twist, you know, and you know, like, are the ghosts real? Are the monsters real? You know, that's such an old horror cliche. So I guess I respect Babadook for straight up saying, oh no, the monster's real, but it's really important that it can represent all this other stuff too. And it's kind of hard to reconcile that, you know, like it's a real monster, yes, but it's also her grief. And it's like, well, okay, there's a way to do that. And I don't think they really hit it, to be honest with you. I think if they lean more one way or the other, like if you lean in the direction of the grief, the mom wrote the pop-up book. She was the one who was going nuts. Like the Babadook, that monster, was her like losing her grip and finally lashing out at her son, as she always wanted to do. Because, you know, if it's the Babadook's real now and the Babadook possesses her, like as frustrated as she gets, are we supposed to believe that she always wanted to lash out her son like this, or that the Babadook's actually doing it for her now? So it's trying like having your cake and eating it too. I'm going to keep rambling like
Well,
this.
it's interesting that you guys are using that as kind of a negative, because I think that that's actually the positive thing about it. That it is kind of a movie that you have to bring something to, that it invites you to kind of bring your own experiences and kind of bring your own conclusions to certain things, and in some cases leaves crucial parts of the story out, or crucial parts of maybe connecting crucial details, and basically asks you to fill that in yourself. And I think
it's like bagging your own groceries at Walmart. That's great.
Choose your own depression.
And to me, that's probably the most interesting thing about it. I mean, like, other than the fact that like the design of the Babadook itself is pretty, I wouldn't say iconic, but like it would fit in with like an early Tim Burton design, like Walt Disney Animation Tim Burton, not like Edward Scissorhands Tim Burton. But other than that, like, yeah, like the things that you guys are kind of citing as negatives, I would actually see as a positive, I think.
Well, that's fair too, you know, and I mean, you wouldn't be alone. Like I said, the movie has a tremendous reputation ahead of it. So, Ben, why don't you lock in your vote for us?
Well, the fact that it's only okay is what that's my vote. I mean, it's not guilty, but I kind of hate that I'm voting not guilty because I don't want to. Reels of Justice says it's great. I think we do stand, Dylan and I, on being that. Yeah, it's not bad, but it's really not as good as people think it is either.
Right, Dylan?
I kind of want to say guilty, but, you know, I just can't, you know, like there's too much stuff in it that is good. I really like a lot of the points that Bobby
I love the design
brought up, you know. Yeah, but like at the end of the day, I mean, I think I'm hard pressed to think of a bad movie that has such a strong leading performance. Maybe you could think of one, Ryan, but like whenever you have that really strong lead carrying that movie on their shoulders, like CC Davis, was that her name? CC Davis?
S.E. Davis.
S.E. Davis was able to do. You know, I mean, like she pulled everyone along. You know, even like the secondary character, like the bitchy sister. I mean, if you know, like it was pretty boilerplate, but you know, small part, nailed it. You know, and sometimes that counts for a lot too. So I can't say that the movie's guilty, but I will say it is disappointing.
So,
not guilty.
all right.
So you can speak your heart.
I'm voting guilty.
Oh my God! Twist.
That's it? Just
Yep.
guilty?
Just guilty.
Yeah, just guilty. Okay.
As you were the one who was like defending it because you saw everything as being a positive?
I just want to make sure it's not a unanimous thing, because you
All right,
guys
then
are clearly you're not happy about saying not guilty. So I will say guilty for you.
Ah, what a great guy. That's what I love about Ryan. All
Team
right, then.
player right there.
Absolutely. All right, I think we should go tell that judge.
Is he handsome?
Not today, I'm sorry, no.
Oh, wow.
Mr. Foreman, have you reached a verdict?
We have, Your Honor. In the case of the people versus the Babadook, we find the accused not guilty of being a bad movie.
This is an outrage.
The verdict is so rendered. So if you hear 3 knocks on the door, don't worry about it. Court is adjourned.
This is Bob A. Dook, no relation to Babadook, from the Babadook Gazette, reporting to you live from outside the Reels of Justice. Mr. LePire, would you care to share your thoughts on the jury's verdict?
I can't say I'm happy with it, but I do accept it. They just need to know that when they are traumatized and can only see the world in gray, that there's no hope for them. They will only ever see it as gray when that happens. And that's because of the injustice that was carried out here today.
Well, acceptance is the last phase. Thank you. And here comes Mr. Maynard. Excuse me. Would you care to share your thoughts on today's verdict?
Well, it was a good day. I think that the jury made the right decision, although Ryan made a controversial one. But he didn't mean it, so I forgive him.
Were you eavesdropping in on that jury, sir?
I was. I have a Babadook on the inside. I have a Babadook on the inside. But I think this really strikes a victory for people that struggle with coping with grief every day. So I dedicate this victory to them.
Thank you very much. That's all we have from the courthouse today. Let's go back to that studio for a post-trial analysis.
Yeehaw!
Why were you Southern? I guess I made fun of people for silly accents today,
Well, kiss
should I?
my grits.
Well, that was one heck of a try we had there, boys.
It's the wildest ride in the wilderness.
Good job, Bobby. I think you really brought it.
Brought that from home.
And Bobby, I think you got to highlight a lot of stuff about the film that really I haven't heard brought up about the movie. I think the movie is great on a high level and a big picture. I think when you zoom in the way you did, there are a lot of those small problems with consistency and stuff like that. But I'm glad I didn't lose the case just because they swapped sides on the bed.
that was teetering. Yeah, no, Bobby, it's not that you took on a huge hit of a movie and you did it with a Blum and grace, and it was a very good case. And this is just one of those, again, it's a movie like, I don't really like it. I don't recommend it, but you can't say
it's bad.
You can't say it's bad.
I get it. It's okay.
I will say this: I never want to watch it
you
again.
guys when the next episode comes out. I promise.
I mean, I didn't love it the first time I watched it, but when I watched it the second time, I liked it a lot more. Like focusing more on the grief element, from start to finish, being aware that that's what it's doing. At the beginning of the film all the way throughout, I enjoyed it a lot more.
That makes sense. This was only my second time watching it. I watched it once, not in theaters. When it hit DVD, I rented it and watched it that way. And I had really high expectations, and they were not met at all.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I just avoided it. And then when the opportunity came to come back onto this show, I was super excited. And then I realized my first choice of movie would look really bad in 2020. Like, I'm a married white guy, and my initial choice was Moonlight, because that movie's terrible.
But you're still saying it's terrible.
But, trying to take that movie on in 2020, bad optics. So I changed up the last minute.
Read the room, man. Read the room.
So my recommendation this week is Moonlight.
Save it, Ryan. So Bobby, what has been keeping you busy lately?
Not getting a haircut. I haven't had a haircut in 9 months now, and you guys
Disgusting.
can't see this, but my hair is pure eraser head right now.
We are
Nice.
a podcast here really dedicated to frequent haircuts. Every one of us gets regular haircuts all the time,
Of course, when you don't have
Been
any
a
hair, it's pretty
solid
easy.
year for me.
except Ben, who looks like David Crosby these days.
I just have to cut those 2 or 3 hairs, and I'm done.
Oh, like Homer Simpson. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
exactly.
Film Fest's been inundated with film festivals that have been virtual since I was last on the show. Nightstream happened, Holly Shorts, Doc NYC is happening right now. Is it Wisconsin? I forget. Mill Valley happened. Just a lot of film festivals. So Film Threat, which I'm a editor and writer for, has been super, super busy. We did not slow down during COVID. We got busier, and we have remained busy all year. So that's what's been keeping me busy, writing and editing.
It's awesome.
Sweet. Is there a recent review you had of yours that you think people should check out right now?
Frank and Zed. It premiered at a horror fest called Nightstream. It is a puppet horror movie, but it's not a comedy. It's more in a gothic horror.
It's not a comedy. It's not a comedy.
Most of the puppet horror movies are comedies. There's Head. There's Attack of the
Puppets?
The Puppet Monster Massacre is what I'm thinking.
Puppet Treasure Island.
Treasure Island, yes, horror movie entirely. So most
What about
horror
the
movies
actual
are full on
puppets, you know?
horror films, but I really loved Frank and Zed, and I think my review will show why.
All right, awesome. And what recommendation do you have for us for a movie people should check out?
Well, I have two. I'm here, so that means I have to recommend Diamogene, of course.
Of course. Love it.
Not even Diamogene Strikes Back, huh?
Yeah, well, we can go with the sequels later on. We're 2020 just Diamogene, 2021 just the first sequel, 2022 just the next sequel, then the TV show.
It was a TV show?
No, I don't know. I'm being goofy.
I'd be heading onto the dark web right after this show, man, to decide that thing down.
But I bring with me a different, much better Australian parable horror film, and that is The Faceless Man. It got released this year in North America. It is on Amazon Prime. I think it's $2.99. I'm not quite sure of that price, though. And is from James DiMartino. And it's about Sophie, who's a cancer survivor, and she's afraid of going into remission. So to get her mind off of it, her friends take her to a night out in the small Australian town. Well, I should say weekend, not a night. A weekend out in the small Australian town. But at this place they're staying, she keeps seeing the titular Faceless Man. All the while, a gangster is looking for the drugs his one of her friends stole from them. And a racist biker gang is coming into town to cause havoc. It's a lot of things, and it's remarkable in every conceivable way. It just had its New York premiere at Film Noir Cinema in early October, and it's amazing.
Damn those racist bike gangs.
Awesome.
There's not a whole lot of non-racist bike gangs, are there, in film?
Oh, jeez.
Well, not Australia.
Touching
Or
that
in
one.
reality.
Bobby, Dylan, what's your recommendation?
Well, this episode is going to be out in December, and December is a special time of year because it's Fred Ward's birthday.
Hooray!
And so I am recommending Remo Williams, The Adventure Begins. This Academy Award-nominated film follows a special agent, aptly played by Fred Ward, beginning his adventure. There's a sweet, sweet fight on the Statue of Liberty, which was actually being remodeled at the time. So all the scaffolding around it is real, wasn't just for the set. It's a dope movie. Just watch it. You'll thank me.
Sounds good.
On
Ben.
that note, the We Hate Movies podcast just did an episode on Remo Williams.
What?
Yeah.
Did they hate it?
I'm not on that
The title
podcast,
gives me
but yeah,
pause.
they hate it.
Those absolute mooks. I'm calling you out right now, We Hate Movies. Come on this show. Make your
And
case.
prosecute
Bring
it.
me on.
Yeah, why don't you like a movie for once? We hate movies. God.
Yeah. And watch a Fred Ward one while you're doing it. Ben, what do you got for us? Another Fred Ward movie, I hope?
No, I haven't even seen one to my knowledge.
You've seen
watching
Tremors.
the Babadook,
You've
my
seen
mind
Tremors.
kept going.
You've seen Tremors.
Oh, is that one? Okay.
Naked Gun
Well,
33
watching the
third.
Babadook, my mind kept going to a specific film, so I'm going with another J-horror recommendation. I'm going with Dark Water. It's a great commentary on the breakdown of family and how it affects the children. So it similarly focuses to the relationship of a mother with a child amidst all this supernatural horror, like the Babadook does. So it's definitely worth a watch.
Won't somebody please think of the children?
Think of the children.
Another Simpsons reference we got on this episode. That's like 4 or 5 now.
God, no kidding.
Ryan, what have you got for me?
My spooky recommendation is
It's not October anymore. It needs to be a jolly recommendation, Ryan.
Sorry, my non-spooky recommendation is another horror movie from a completely original female perspective. It's Anna Biller's film The Love Witch from 2016. It is a super retro and much lighter than The Babadook, but it is beautifully constructed and super politically charged. It is one of the most thoroughly fascinating and complex films that I've seen in the last decade. Like Jennifer Kent, I cannot wait to see what Anna Biller does next. You can get it on Canopy. If you have a library card, you can get a subscription for free. Or if you have Amazon Prime or Shudder, it's streaming on all 3 of those places.
Kind of sounds easier to get the Prime than the
Or
login.
just message Ryan. He'll give you the login information.
You should
You
get
can pay for
Canopy
it,
because-
or you
well,
can get it for free.
I only recommend Canopy simply because you're helping libraries exist right now.
And help libraries. That's true. Good point. I used to do a little dance downtown under the name Love Witch. So that really strikes a chord with me.
That's why I know you.
LePire's a great tipper.
Do you also urinate in jars?
Who doesn't?
Downtown?
Who doesn't? That's how we all make our money.
That's how we say hi.
Yeah, I was thinking of movies that I wanted to recommend. I'm gonna do Ryan's thing. I'm gonna do 2 because I never do 2. And one is gonna be a spooky recommendation, but I don't think it's spooky really, or it's good, but it's like 2005's Boogeyman, and I think it's a bad movie. But I like the ideas that they explore with the Boogeyman, kind of that he kind of shapeshifts and he's static, right? He basically builds his fears off of like what's in the little kid's room, and that's like what he takes as his image. But it's kind of like an opportunity for a cool psychological twist that they never actually go for. So sort of a shitty movie. So maybe don't see Boogeyman, but it's still my recommendation.
What Rob's not telling you about that is it stars one of the people from Seventh Heaven.
Ooh, I could see that.
It does.
I like all the
Barry Watson.
But not the one you want.
I don't know. Depends. What are your thoughts on Barry Watson? He's handsome.
Well, he's no Catherine Hicks.
Agreed. And then just as another recommendation, if you want a movie that has kids in it and it's great, see Good Boys.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Dylan and I watched that recently, and it was really funny, and it's got great child actors who aren't annoying. So if you need to sort of wash your mouth out with and get that bad taste of annoying children out of your mouth, then
You shouldn't
then
have
check
the
out Good
taste
Boys.
of children in your mouth. You
That's what I was thinking when I said it, but thanks for calling me out, Ryan.
You're welcome.
But if you did have the taste of children in your mouth, you need to wash that out.
Stop.
Soon.
Stop.
Well, we're all out of show today, folks.
Well, we are all out of show today, folks, and we want to thank Bobby for joining us. Thank you, Bobby.
Thank you for having me again.
Yeah.
Yep, we'd love to have you again. That's 2 for you, right?
This is the second time. Yeah.
Oh, we got to take it down a peg. Rematch.
Yeah, one win, one loss. So
Yep. When you reach 5, you get a free T-shirt.
Ooh, exciting. But Rob,
but it's my T-shirt, so it's going to be huge. I'm sorry.
It's dirty, so you're gonna probably have to wash it. It's an unrelated T-shirt to the show.
Rob, I don't like Good Boys. I saw it at South by Southwest and didn't think it was very good.
Oh, see, you could come and put Good Boys on trial next time.
Oh, we got to do a mini trial right now. We only have 30
I
seconds.
didn't hate it, but I can't do that. It just wasn't good, but that's different than being bad.
So you wouldn't say that they're good boys.
Shut up.
Why is Ryan still here?
We are all out of time for this week, but we hope you'll join us next time as the Reels of Justice keep turning.
Later.
Count it!
Count it! Ah, damn it.
Please follow us on Twitter at Reels of Justice, Instagram Reels of Justice, and Facebook.com/Reels of Justice.